RxMuscle in studio. I'm flooded with guests in my studio. Not only did I get one guest, I got multiple guests today. I have IFBB fitness pro Aleksandra Kobielak here today, all the way from Poland.
Yes.
That's a long trip to come visit us. Yeah, I know. That's a long trip to come visit me. I feel like the old days in New York when people would just drop in out of nowhere. And of course, we have Guru Ameen Alai here, and your guru friend.
Leo, yeah, nice.
Leo, what's your last name?
Leo Rex.
Okay, Leo, you've been emailed me before. We've talked several times, and you're a very knowledgeable guy. And you guys are partners, right?
Yeah. We are partners. I'm a great fan of yours.
That's why thank
I
you.
Message you.
Great fans are always welcome into the studio because it makes me feel good about myself. Now, we're going to talk to you guys in a minute. I want to talk to Aleksandra for a second. And I want to just, you came obviously as a vacation, but I remember you back in the early 2000s, tearing up the fitness scene. A lot of magazine shoots. You had a look everyone was looking for, and then you kind of just disappeared. Where'd you go?
I just make fall Olympia, then I just decide, stop it with this sport. Because,
why though?
Why? Because I have everything. I have all the title. I just become many times Polish championships. And,
did you win the world championships?
2 times Europe champion. Then I have bronze and silver and gold medal from amateur champions.
Right.
Then I win the open category. Then I decide to come to the professional.
Right.
And every year I just make top 3. Then I go to the Olympia. It was not easy. Now
Sure.
it's much easier. I can see.
Yeah.
The rules has changed.
The girls were way tougher when you were competing.
And I just thinking, okay, this is stop. I am not a young woman. I have something to do in my life.
But you actually still do gymnastics because you teach gymnastics in Poland. So you never stopped doing the sport, really.
Exactly. I teach gymnastics because I was the first in Poland. Fitness competitor was
Right.
gymnastics. Then I just decided to make my academy for children. And now we have in Europe a lot of fit kids. That's called fit kids. And I make my own competition.
Right.
That's called Grand Prix Aleksandra Kobielak. And I make also the Europe Championships and World Championship. And I cooperate with a lot of countries.
You got to bring a couple of those girls out here because we're lacking fitness girls
I know,
nowadays.
this is good idea. I will be think about this because in Europe have a lot of children, but America don't have nothing.
Are you thinking about a comeback? That's what I was a little birdie or a big birdie over there actually just told me that you might be thinking about maybe coming back and trying one more time.
Now after this speech, I should come back for sure.
I was saying Oksana Grishina's coming back. It's that's like in vogue now to make a comeback. Am I allowed to ask you your age?
Oh, next
I know
week,
you're not supposed to ask women that.
I'll tell you the truth.
Okay.
The next weekend in 24 January, I will be 49.
Wow. You look great.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm going to be 52 next month.
Oh,
so.
you look great too.
Thank you, but I'm not competing though. You're still competition.
I can compete, but
ready.
I don't want to stay close to the young woman because I am almost 50. Then if you find for me my category, why not?
Well, usually gymnasts can't keep doing it. It takes a toll on their body. A lot of elite level gymnasts have had joint replacements and all kinds of crazy injuries. You seem to be looking like you're
because
very fit.
I am very healthy woman. I never took the drugs. Eat very healthy.
Is that true? You never did any anabolics?
Never.
Wow.
Some trainers try and do this to me, but I am crazy person, very independent. I always say, stop it, this is not for me. This is my life, I choose my way.
Right.
And now I look younger than another person.
You absolutely do. Well, I hope to see you back on stage. I hope also, I'm sure it's very cold in your country right now. So
it's winter, it's
I'm
crazy.
sure you're enjoying the 80 plus weather we have
Yes.
here. And I heard that you're going to go fishing later. Is that true?
Yes, with Josh Friedman.
Josh Friedman,
course.
he's a master fisherman.
Yeah,
Although we
this
have
is
another
a
person here
champion.
whose wife's a master fisherman too. Maybe they could, all you guys can go fishing together.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I think he might have a Lamborghini boat you guys can go on too and take out. So I saw he's got the Lamborghini truck in my driveway. Not Josh, of course, but Josh may be driving it, but not. It was great for you to come and see you. I'm very happy
Thank
that
you for
you graced me with your presence. And I remember you from back in the early 2000s, and I wondered where you went. Now I finally have an answer to my question.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. You're welcome back anytime. Josh, you want to come say hi? All right, just stick your head in here for a second, just so that people know you're here.
Great to see you, Dave. We miss you in Long Island, but I come to Florida every year to come visit you and take your boy fishing. And I'm going to go out right now to the river behind your house and try to catch a crocodile. Or at least show Aleksandra a Florida crocodile.
I think you caught a sunfish last year for my son. He was very enthralled by it. You're very impressed that you actually were able to throw a piece of Wonder Bread in the water and catch it.
I grabbed some of your turtle food and used it for bait, and it worked quite well.
Yeah, well, there is alligators in the backyard, so you might, if you happen to catch one, take some pictures of it.
Okay. Bye, RxMuscle.
All right, that was Josh Freeman and Aleksandra. I want to thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go over to Ameen now and Leo.
Hello.
And what are you doing in Florida? That's the question.
So I came here because Roger Stone asked me to.
And I got my Roger Stone shirt, my new Roger Stone shirt on. Let me see if they put it up on the screen there. Hold on. Roger Stone still did nothing wrong. We have the little addition. The other one was Roger Stone did nothing wrong. People know I always wear that shirt, so I like it. This is actually a nicer quality shirt, and he still did nothing wrong. But he is facing jail time, right?
Yes, that it's and we would hope that he would get pardoned, but right now he's concerned that he may get his bond revoked come February 20th.
Right.
So he's enlisted me to get him in the best shape he can to be prepared for it. So I was just here, and while I was here seeing Roger, we contacted Big Lenny, and Big Lenny came over to see Roger, and he also met Roger. And
what did Roger Stone think of Big Lenny?
He just didn't really think of much.
You think Roger can get Big Lenny elected like mayor of something like down here?
You never know.
Imagine that, Roger working on the Big Lenny campaign.
Roger can make anyone elected.
You think Roger can get rid of the tranny video that?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Roger can make anything go away, right?
We'll find out.
That's right. That's right.
We'll find out.
Now, what are you guys doing exactly down here? Because I know you have a new company you're launching.
Right. So Guru Ameen Alai has a partner, and his name is Leo Rex, and he's with me here today. And what we're doing is we're adding what I have specialized in, and we're adding longevity into it.
Okay. And what are your specialization right now?
Well, the bodybuilding, the weight loss, and the fat loss, competing, competition, and stuff like that. And now we have longevity added to it and also genetic testing. And reading the genetic test and understanding what factors. And I'll let Leo explain a little bit more about it.
Sure.
Okay?
So basically what we're doing is, Ameen has been dealing with bodybuilders for a long time, and I'm interested, as you know, in the sport of bodybuilding because I always message you and stuff like that.
Yeah, you do.
So I know a bit about the sport, but the real thing that I'm very interested in is what you do recently, which is longevity, trying to live longer.
Absolutely.
Especially people of
Actually, I'm not really looking to live longer. I'm looking to live longer and healthier. I want to just one day go to sleep and not wake up. But I want to live a long time. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to be sick for 20 years.
And that's what we call in longevity studies health span, which is the longest amount of time.
I don't like my viewpoint. Can you change my... Oh, there we go. That's better. Okay. There's a weird angle. One of those cameras give me a weird angle.
So it's about living the longest time you can healthy and then dying as quick as possible.
Yes.
Not with Alzheimer's, not with dementia, not with suffering.
Yes.
And so that's what the field is doing really recently. And, in bodybuilding, we sometimes have a misunderstanding because we come across these anti-aging clinics.
Sure.
This is an ascientific approach to make yourself feel better in the short term. Yeah. But there is a scientific research going on in longevity studies. I mean, mainly they deal with 3 pathways. One is the AMP kinase pathway, which is what metformin works on. Right. Another one is sirtuins, which is fasting effects also. And the third one that's very well known is mTOR, which is which is mTOR is something bodybuilders want. But
bodybuilders want to stimulate it with IGF, but we want to suppress that when you want to live a long time.
Downstream to IGF, exactly. And we want to suppress it when we're trying to live longer. So what we try to do is give, especially former bodybuilders or bodybuilders who are health conscious, some small practical advice like using fasting cyclically and things like that to try to find a balance between lifespan and health and hypertrophy. And in addition, we're also dealing with older people who have particular interests in this. Now, there are a lot of doctors, full MDs that do this. We are obviously not doctors. I'm just a fan of longevity studies. I read all the papers. I studied for myself. I'm a hypochondriac like yourself. I'm very, we have a lot of things in common. So that's what I do. But, people can hire doctors to do that for them. They're very expensive and they usually don't get covered by insurance. So I read that. I can't hire them myself. So I do the research myself and we put these things together.
Are you guys taking any specific supplements for longevity at this point?
Of course, yeah.
What are you taking?
Well, I take about like 25 supplements, but the main ones that I take is I've been taking metformin for 2 years. I take resveratrol, but not something. I'm sure you take resveratrol as well, and red wine has resveratrol.
I drink red wine too. Yeah.
What many people, you started. I saw that you started recently.
When you have kids, you have to drink wine. That's the only thing that calms you down.
The thing about resveratrol is if it's yellow, I don't know if your resveratrol is yellow.
I don't know, but I get the life extension resveratrol.
You should. Interesting. I'm trying to find a better brand right now. You know, unless it's white, it goes bad very quickly.
Oh, it does.
Not many people know.
So should I open the capsules and see if it turned yellow?
You got to check if they're white or yellow, and if they're white, that might be good.
Okay.
You know, I take nicotinamide riboside.
I take that too. Yeah.
But I take it
NAD.
from a fantastic company. Sorry to interrupt you. From a fantastic company called Elysium, which is a company launched by Leonard Guarente, who is the first.
Did you send me a link to that once?
No, I haven't.
Okay, someone did.
But Leonard Guarente is the guy who originally launched the research paradigm into resveratrol and found out about it. It's a wonderful product with actual clinical studies on that product.
Yeah, they do a lot of advertising. I noticed. Yeah.
Exactly. But they are really a solid company. So those are the 3 ones that everybody knows about. We have like 20 more. We try to keep them a little bit secretive. We tell you off camera.
Right.
You know, but we're not focused on antioxidants. You know, free radical scavenging is a thing of the past. It didn't really affect people in a positive way long term. It's more about initiating.
Well, I think it's good for bodybuilding purposes for recovering from workouts.
Oh, for sure.
So I think I don't think it may not make you live longer, but it certainly is going to help you recover better.
For sure. But what I'm talking about in terms of living longer, it's hormetic stresses, which are stressors to the body that cause the body to enact certain biological processes like cellular repair, autophagy, things like that. So, for example, blueberries are a hormetic stressor. You know, turmeric is a hormetic stressor as well. Right. So we focus more on hormetic stresses. And just not to be too long-winded, the final thing we do, as Ameen mentioned, is we review genes. So I mentioned to you before, you recently did your genetic ancestry testing.
Yes.
Not from my favorite website, but...
Right. I've done DNA testing, though, also of my metabolic process.
I heard you say that as well. I'm a big fan of yours. I listen to everything. But so we...
That's more than I do.
So what we do is, though, we take the whole genome, like from 23andMe or Ancestry. 23andMe is the preferred one. And, you know, it's not really updated very frequently. Like, they'll tell you, this is your chance of diabetes. They'll tell you some gene variants, but they're not up to date on what's called genome-wide association studies, which are the statistical studies right now being done, checking gene variants with certain effects on health. For example, let me give you a couple of examples. There's one that's really famous called the MTHFR gene, which is a gene that affects methylation of methionine, turning methionine and homocysteine, recycling it. So some people like myself have 50% methylation in my body.
So you're not methylating well.
I'm not methylating
you're not turning on genes, right?
You're not turning on genes and turning off genes particularly, but also my dopamine is not doing very well, so I have to deal with that, and I have to supplement with certain things to try to give methyl donors to my body. Right. And we do this for clients as well. I give you another example.
Methylfolate would be a good supplement.
Exactly.
Methyl B12 would be a good supplement.
Exactly. And another example, which I think may be particularly interesting to you, is the ApoE4 gene. Have you heard of ApoE4 yet?
I have, but go ahead. You can.
So I think it's very interesting. So the ApoE. Human beings, for 7 million years of hominid evolution, have had one gene called the ApoE4. We had one variant for 96% of our history as hominids. In the last 4%, 220,000 years ago, we developed another variant called ApoE3, which is what I have. I have 2 copies of that. Right. And then 80,000 years ago, we got another variant come out in humanity called ApoE2. Right. Now, the problem is, if you are ApoE4, your chances of, if you have one copy of ApoE4, your chances of getting diabetes rise from a standard of 9% to 30%. Wow. If you have 2 copies, in some studies, it's 90%.
Wow.
And the other thing that ApoE4 does is it's extremely bad for cardiovascular disease. It makes it much more difficult for your body to get triglycerides out of the bloodstream.
Well, I would assume if your blood sugar control is poor, that's probably,
Of course.
You're going to have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease.
Exactly. And
so what do you do for that?
So wait, just to add one more thing. The ApoE2 is also bad for cardiovascular disease, but doesn't have as much of the Alzheimer's effect. So for this kind of thing, I mean, to be honest, there's some experts that are dealing... it's different depending on how you approach it. If you're looking at the Alzheimer's,
Well, they say that Alzheimer's is like type 3 diabetes. They're saying
as well. It has a lot to do with
poor blood sugar control, accumulation of glucose in the brain.
So when you take a simple carb in your body, your body switches from a SIRT1 state to a REL-A state, which is an inflammatory state in the body.
Sure.
That inflammatory state leads to the misfolding of proteins, amyloids in the brain.
Okay.
So the main goal is to reduce inflammation, but there's a lot of other things. Like people who are concerned about Alzheimer's want to make sure their hormones, their trophic factors are at the right level, like 500 milligrams of test. I've heard top doctors in Alzheimer's research say if I had ApoE4, I would be making sure my testosterone is always at 500 milligrams.
Why is that?
It seems that trophic factors, I'm not sure exactly why, have an effect on preventing this amyloid misfolding of proteins. I was going to give you, after the discussion, a link to one of the doctors I think you'd really like to check out, because I know about your father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, when I had my DNA tested, according to the DNA testing that I had done, I don't have I have a very low propensity for Alzheimer's, my genetic whatever defect. So maybe I got my mother's side in that sense. Matter of fact, my Ancestry said that I'm 80, almost 70% of European Jew,
Eastern European
which
Jewish,
I
wanted to discuss with
which
you.
is interesting. You know,
I wanted to discuss that with you. It's so fascinating because you're half Italian and half Jewish.
Right. I inherited more genes from my mother's side, obviously.
You would expect, but what the thing is, it doesn't. It's almost impossible to do it, because as we talk about in snakes, I watch your snake videos as well. On an allele, you have on an individual single nucleotide, you have 2 alleles.
Right.
You have to get one from each parent.
I know.
So what the thing is this. Now there's an intricacy that not many people know unless they're experts on ancestry stuff, which is that Italians, so the Jewish people, especially the ones that eventually lived in Eastern Europe, spent a great deal of time in the Roman Empire. Because they left Palestine. I mean, they left Palestine, and the first people actually that converted to Christianity, for example, were Jews living in the Eastern Roman Empire. So for a long time, Jews lived in the Roman Empire, both in Egypt as well as in other places. Wow. And eventually what happened is that there was mixing between Jews and Italians. And so today, if you take an Ashkenazi Jew and you try to, there's a genetic metric whereby they plot a genetic ancestry on a map, you'll find Ashkenazi Jews are equidistant between Sephardic Jews or Middle Eastern Jews, such as Mizrahi Jews, as well as Italians of all people, not Slavic people, not Germans, which is so surprising.
Well, you know, ethnically, Italians and Jews are almost exactly the same. I mean, I grew up in a community in Long Island where it was just Jewish and Italian people, and they're almost exactly the same in everything they do. It's wild. It's
because the Jewish people have a lot of Italian blood in them.
Yeah.
And
people thought my father was the Jewish half. They didn't think my mother was. They thought my father was the Jew because he acted more like a Jewish person than my mother did. And he even looks a little. So, especially in his older age. So it's kind of ironic. It makes sense. Yeah.
So how this would go wrong is this: the study that you are taking, what they do is these companies, especially Ancestry, which has Ancestry actually has the biggest amount of genes in their system.
Yeah, they have a big database.
But what they do is they take a sample database from each country, as I messaged you about. And if you match a specific, it's about the length of the match that you have in your genes. If you have a certain length, which is they call it a centimorgan length. If you have a certain length of centimorgans matched identically to a reference population, they'll tell you you're related to that population.
Oh, I see.
But if you're not in that data set, you could be completely Italian from one side, but they don't have anything with that data set that's that long of a centimorgan. See, when people breed, when people mix with each other, their centimorgans get mixed because every allele mixes together. So there's less of a large chunk of centimorgans related.
I see.
So what you could have had is this: they could be telling you you're more Jewish because your Jewish side may have smaller Italian centimorgans, or the opposite side. The
one is dominating, is what you're saying.
Exactly, but just according to the reference populations. I wouldn't read too much into it.
Right, so you're thinking it's not that accurate.
No, not at all.
It's fun.
But it's fun.
It's fun. It's amazing, however, they can link you with like cousins come up and stuff like that. They know. I'm not telling them who my cousins are. They're telling me who my cousins are, and it's always right.
And you'd be surprised, some of the cousins that you don't know are cousins. Like when you go to the ones that are related to you by 0.5% DNA, they're your cousins too. I've done all mine. I've went through everyone. I have a huge family tree I did. Took me 6 months. And every one of them was real.
My mother's sister had a kid before she got married when she was younger, and she gave it up for adoption. And so this person comes up as my first cousin. I'm like, who is this? And I reached out to him, and it turns out I thought I was the oldest, male cousin on that side. It was really him, but he never was part of the family. He was adopted by another family. Luckily, it was a very good family. But then he reconnected with his half-sisters at some point a couple of years ago, but I didn't know who he was, and then we found out who he was, and he's a first cousin of mine, and I didn't know because I never met him.
So incredible. Sometimes I used to consult for friends and family about their ancestry to help them out. I have a couple of funny stories, well, not funny, shocking stories.
Yeah.
For example, there was a lady in her 70s. Her father had just passed away of old age, and she was making me do a test for her, and this is pretty common actually. This is the basic thing that happens a lot, which is you find out you're not your father's son. Very frequent. I mean,
that's scary.
About I'd say about 5% of the people testing their
Really?
genes find this out.
Wow.
And it's called a non-parental event in the literature, and it's shocking. And sometimes it's difficult to deal with,
sure.
especially after your father passed. So
Right.
So your mother, in her case, mother passed too. So she didn't know who to talk to about it, and she didn't know how to approach. Another example, for example, is actually my relative. I have my mother's family is from Texas and Alabama, and my mother has distant relations in Alabama that. They've been there forever, and they're very southern. And one of my relatives was telling me, she was showing me someone that she found on her on Ancestry actually, but the lady looked nothing like her. She was African American. My relative was white.
Okay.
And it turned out her father had 2 African American children.
Wow.
Never told them about it.
Yeah.
Moved them to New York. Their mother never knew, and now they're friends. They connected and they treat each other like sisters.
Crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah.
I'm very much like you, and the reason that I started this is because I also want to live as long and as healthy as possible. But more so because now we have kids, and we want to be good role models for our kids. You can't have the not for me, but the bodybuilder mentality where you want to you only live once, or you just want to look good. And
it's amazing how you change when you have kids.
It's exactly, the whole thing changes, and then you're like, oh well, if I'm gone, what's going to happen to my child? You know, and so that's when I started to talk to Leo, and we started to get together, and now we're doing testing for myself and my son, and see what we can do to increase the quality of our lives.
So what are you guys doing, like in terms of what kind of services you're offering out there?
Yeah, I can tell you.
So basically, we offer like a coaching. Ameen offers coaching on bodybuilding.
Sure.
We offer coaching on longevity. We also have a coaching package now we term mental performance. So it's not just the ibogaine advice on ibogaine, but for example, for me, when a few years ago I suffered some minor brain damage, and after that I've spent years trying to find out how to improve my brain capacity.
Okay.
Through cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as through certain things that increase brain plasticity. Because the way neurons fire in the brain can be reorganized, surprisingly, very inspirationally. I mean, if anyone's listening, they want to learn more about this, there's a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. It's an inspirational book about what you can do with your brain. So we offer mental performance, bodybuilding, longevity, and as well, I just wanted to direct people. Sometimes people, and I'm sure this happens to you as well, send Ameen a lot of long questions. I was probably doing this to you as well. But people send people a lot of long messages. And the thing is, it's hard to respond to all of them, but Ameen wants to answer all of the questions. So I wanted to say that if anyone's interested, you can email Ameen. We have guruameenalai.com/consulting. You can book a short phone call, or you could send in an emailed question. It's only $30, and that way you get your questions answered, because he doesn't have the time to go through them sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I'm up till 4 a.m, because I'm answering everyone's questions. But if someone does ask me a very long, involved question, and they are not a client of mine, a lot of time, my response, I don't do homework, unless
that's what it is.
So if it's too involved, I always tell people, keep it succinct if you want a quick answer, or you want me to, solve a problem for you. And then a lot of people are very, very nice. They're like, look, here's my issue. If I need to pay you, or I need to do a phone consult, just tell me where to sign up, because they want, and a lot of times I don't even ask them for money because it's a quick answer. But if it is a long, involved answer, I will tell them, well, go to my website, sign up for a phone consult, and and we'll talk on the phone, and we'll figure it out. And usually we troubleshoot things pretty well. So I mean, you guys are offering similar
exactly the same thing. Yeah, he responds
to
short ones, but some are too long.
Yeah. I mean, you can only do so much in the course of a day. I mean, if I have a rough day, like today's a long day doing filming, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to have 6,000 emails, stacked up waiting for me,
and 300 snakes.
Yeah, and 300 snakes to clean. And that was last night. And you can only do so much. And I have kids, and I got to put the kids to sleep, and I got to feed them. So there's only so much you can do in the course of a day. I understand that. So what did you guys talk to Big Lenny about? That's probably really what people want to hear about. They don't want to hear about longevity. They want to know what the deal with Big Lenny is.
Well, you go ahead and start off.
He talked to you about Big Lenny a bit on the late night.
Yeah,
but there's much more to it. So it was.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on the after hour show about Big Lenny, and he met Big Lenny and was talking to Big Lenny about how we can help him. And Big Lenny actually drove an hour to meet you guys, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He drove an hour and in a mystery car. We don't know where it's very interesting.
We're not sure how he got the mystery
We're not
car.
sure how. I told him I thought you'd appear on a bicycle, but he really said he didn't explain where the car came from.
He doesn't do cardio, I don't think.
No, he doesn't anymore. Not at all. Actually, yeah. So we should talk about that. But so basically, Big Lenny came by, and we were still with Roger. He came on the wrong day, so we were still with Roger.
Oh boy!
So that's how we were able to introduce them together. Roger,
what a motley crew that must have been.
Exactly. And we took a picture. We'll show you. It's on the Instagram.
When Lenny left after, what was like Roger's impression of him? Like,
Roger loves everyone.
Yeah, I know he does, but
he was just he
was
just
he
looked
like
at him as a fan.
Amused? Was he amused by it?
I don't think so.
Because Lenny didn't say much until Roger left. He was because Lenny was.
Roger left first. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
then Lenny and I stayed.
Roger didn't call you afterwards and say, "Oh boy."
He's probably used to seeing these people.
Yeah, I was gonna say
lots of bodybuilding people around him.
He's been around long enough to see it. So
there he is. Oh, there you guys are.
Yeah.
Roger, Lenny, and Guru Ameen. Roger, I mean, Lenny looks like he's like almost like a lumberjack.
He's 340 now.
Oh, is he really?
Yes.
Oh,
And he's so let's tell you what happened. So we had a great fortune. So I spent some time with Roger. So
Lenny, I'm insulted that you actually drove to see Ameen, but you haven't come out to our studios again. My neighbor, I want you to go talk to my neighbor like you did last time. Set him straight.
He mentioned that actually. He goes, when you come over here, be careful about Dave's neighbor.
I don't think you guys don't look. I don't think you guys would get the cops called on you. Lenny looks like he could be dangerous.
But the car you pull up in is pretty loud.
That's true. Yeah, the Lamborghini. They pull up in this Lamborghini SUV. I mean, it's just outrageous. And you guys know I like cars, so I had to go out there and take a million pictures and sit in the thing, and it was great.
Put a picture of it up on the thing.
I have. Oh yeah. I didn't. I have it on my phone. I don't think Tyler. Maybe I'll try to email it to Tyler. But it's a great looking car.
So you guys were talking about on the show late night how Lenny has, you guys were talking about the trannies, but it's more than that. It seems like Lenny has compulsions, like Ameen was saying, that he really regrets. That's the issue. If you have compulsions, you do weird things, not weird, but whatever you want to do, live and let live.
Yeah,
but if you don't like doing it and you get into
he's very unhealthy though. We
that's
know
a separate
that.
thing.
Yeah, and I try to address that with him when he came here because I make a joke out of everything, but really I was serious with him. I said, Lenny,
you should like it.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. I said I don't want to see you drop dead, of a heart attack at 50 years old. I think you really should start addressing,
So we talked to him about that.
belly.
We talked to him about his insulin resistance. We talked to him about the fact that he must have a very fatty liver right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked to the fact that there's more visceral fat than just the fatty liver. I mean,
Right.
I even poked his belly a little bit to try to.
Is it hard?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Actually, less hard than I thought, but still very hard. I mean, I guess the gradations of this, but the more alarming.
Like an archaeological dig his stomach.
Yeah.
There's different layers you got to get through.
And the interesting, the scary part, to be honest, and not to put Lenny on blast, was that he was, during the interview we had to cut it short when we actually put him on camera later, because he was falling asleep, but not because he's not interested. He was such bad sleep apnea. He can't sleep.
Well, I can't even imagine. I had sleep apnea when I was in 300. And I was lean 300.
Yeah, he's not lean.
No.
And it's the fat and the maybe swelling of the organs, but I really believe it's a lot of internal fat is pushing down on
great
his,
momentum. I think is definitely hypertrophy. Yeah.
Exactly, and he has lungs that are being forced down, so he can't breathe well.
Right.
So he's been sleeping standing up for years now. Not standing up, but sitting down.
Sitting
I was
down.
thought he was like a horse or something like that. He's standing and they put him in a stable.
No, I meant sitting. But he sits straight up, and even that way he can't breathe well,
That's not
even
good.
with the machine.
How's his legs? Like, does he have any ankle swelling?
Severe.
Oh.
It's about to burst. Yeah, it's
really?
very severe.
He's ulcerated. Oh, he's got heart failure probably.
He does actually. He tested his heart a few months ago.
Yeah.
It's at below 50% capacity.
Wow.
I'm not sure which part. He just.
You know what the sick thing is? I bet if he lost weight, he would solve a lot of his problems.
And he has an arrhythmia as
And he
well.
has arrhythmia?
Both.
He probably needs a defibrillator too. Yeah. Right.
I would assume. And actually, but he doesn't listen to any of their advice. So what we try to tell him is, look, the best way to solve things, at least start with trying fasting a little bit. Like
he needs to autophage his whole body. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. He needs to just not eat for the next 3 weeks.
But he's not going to listen. Exactly.
To resensitize himself.
Well, but people don't realize the whole idea behind fasting for people who might not understand is that it enables your body to eat up all the tissues that shouldn't be there. That's what's called autophagy, you know. And I think that's like, you know, people ask me, "Oh, do you intermittent fast?" I'm like, I don't have any. I have nothing left. I'll eat up my brain will disappear.
I think you've
I have
been
nothing
fasting,
left.
right?
Yeah, I do some. I was doing like 12 hours where I wouldn't eat, and then but sometimes, you know what, I don't sleep that much with my kids, so sometimes I only go 8 hours without eating. But I don't have anything left on me. I don't have any gut. I have no stomach. I'm ripped. I got no body fat. I almost can't go that long. I'm like starving to death sometimes in the morning.
I feel like you're a role model really for bodybuilders because of the way you took your health seriously after you stopped. You gradually lost so much weight, and everybody else feels pressure to look a certain way.
I want to live a long
and
time,
you're focused on your family and living a long time.
Because you know what I do? I'm a nut. I create new obsessive goals. So rather than say I got to be big because I want to be validated by everyone out there, I'm like, I want to look like this guy, or I want to be this fit. I know I can remodel my heart, and I can remodel my liver and my kidneys, and how my body looks and my internal organs, and I know it. I know we can do it, and you just have to you have to put a game plan down and then follow it like you want to be Mr. Olympia.
Exactly.
With the same tenacity that you did when you were bodybuilding, I follow that. So you could ask my wife, I eat the same thing every day.
Yeah.
I have the same routines. You can't deviate. You cannot break my routines, because when I get myself on autopilot, that's it.
Brilliant.
So I can't fail, you know, assuming that I have the right plan in action.
Yes.
You know?
And let me, sorry to interrupt you.
That's good. You got that from the contest mentality for preparing for show.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's funny you're saying that, because we're on the same page. That's exactly what I'm doing myself now, facing my situation at home.
Right.
I had to really reassess my life for myself, and realize, you know, what am I going to do about my son? And that's when I started to think about genetics and testing and what can we do to be preventive. Does he have these genes? Does he not have these genes? I mean, this is very important to know. Now we have the information, we have the technology to be able to find these things out. And there are some people that really shouldn't enter into bodybuilding. They shouldn't take growth. They shouldn't take insulin. It could really destroy their life long term. Right. And it would be healthier for those people to find out ahead of time instead of spend their life dying. Right. And then just maybe if that's not for you, then go into contest promotion or be a coach or something else. It doesn't have to. You don't have to. I don't have to be the guy competing. In other words, we don't have to compete.
Right.
And there's, just to add to the explanation of fasting, which was so accurate from Dave, the autophagy. Some people don't realize it's really working on the organs individually. I mean, what's happening? There's a researcher called Walter Longo from San Diego. He does an excellent research on long fasting on mice, but he also does some shorter fasting on humans. And you know, mice, they have to eat all day. So if 3-4 days of fasting for them is like over a week for us. Interesting thing happens when they fast. The first few days, their organs all shrink significantly, except the brain. The brain doesn't shrink. It takes like 3 or 4 weeks for a human's brain to shrink. So the organs shrink. As they shrink, because of the decline in mTOR and because of sirtuin activity, stem cell production is raised. So what happens is these shrinking organs are gaining new, fresh cells. They're not with the DNA damage.
They're being regenerated.
Exactly. And then what happens after the fast, if you then increase protein intake, turn mTOR on, and IGF-1 will react as a result of that, then the organs, the stem cells start to grow. Fresh new cells that are not damaged with inflammation.
I always found that too. I found that you shouldn't always be doing the same thing. So I hit a point where I felt like, all right, I tortured my body enough. Low calorie, low protein. Now I've been bringing my protein up. Matter of fact, I talk about my meal before bed now, like at 12 midnight is a lot of times. So a lot of times I work out at, like upstairs in my house at like 11 o'clock, is I'll have, you know, some fruit, okay, after I eat. After I train, and then I have a Protolyze, which is my protein pudding, which is, it's not a pure whey isolate, it's whey isolate with some casein, which slows it down a little bit. And I have my fiber shake. So that's my meal after I train. And I'm finding is since I started doing that, wasn't eating any protein at night. Like that was it. I was done by eating by 10, and I didn't eat till the next day at 10. You know, since I did that, my fasting blood sugars in the morning are like in the 70s now from the 90s. They dropped. It's like this protein is like this longer acting protein and the fiber together is driving the fasting blood sugars down.
I've heard you say that. That's so fascinating.
So I did everything I had to do in terms of like, you know, the fast, and I felt like I achieved everything I wanted. My physique is looking the way it wants. I feel like I've regenerated things. Now I felt like I had to start rebuilding everything, because you can't keep tearing down, or you disappear.
You die.
I got my weight down to 180 pounds. I don't need to be any lower than that. So now that I'm eating and I'm training again, because my shoulders are good, you know, after the shoulder replacement, I feel like I'm regrowing, like you said, almost like new tissues in my body. and my blood sugars are really good now.
70s, I mean.
So, which is,
very good.
I mean, I was running high blood sugars, not like, neurotically high, not like, where the doctors would say, oh boy, you're in trouble.
200,
but my
110.
hemoglobin A1C was on that borderline of being too high. So it'll be interesting to see in 3 months now what I did. So I think you always have to keep changing the game plan, because if you don't, you stagnate and then you stop making progress,
I was saying that everything has to be in waves.
Yeah.
That we're going to build a wave of muscle. And I recommend doing a PCT with ibogaine, not just to reset your body, but to reset your brain.
Especially if you have problems. I think
Especially if you
Lenny
have
would
problems.
definitely do well on that.
But Lenny needs to lose weight first before he can qualify for it.
Oh, because he can die?
The arrhythmia and the sleep apnea and all that. So if he loses the weight and then we can help him, I think that it'll be a big change. But
I don't think that Lenny can handle being
That's the
200 pounds. Even though he needs to be 200
that's
pounds.
psychological. That's
Yeah.
what ibogaine does for you, though.
Right, but you can't put him on
But you can't
ibogaine
put
until
him
he
on-
loses the
it's a
weight. It's like he's in
catch-22.
this
It's a
terrible
catch-22.
Well, it is a catch-22. So he has to value. He has to take in. We're going to help him. We're going to see what we can do, and hopefully it'll be a positive solution for
like-
his brain and his body.
Would you love to get Lenny in like a lab and just like lock him in there, like just don't move. You just put trays on the thing, and he can only eat what you give him. And
Then
only
the results would be real.
Oh yeah, you could be controlled study. If you can
would be
cure
great.
him, it's like you can cure cancer probably.
We got a message. What was that message? Says that if we can get.
Oh,
get
yeah. People said you'd win $1 million if you can cure Lenny from his.
Imagine you get Lenny's waist down to like 35 inches.
That's the thing. But like you said, it's that psychological barrier which we can't get to without.
I think you can get it down, by the way, because when I was 300 something pounds, I found that when my waist was getting bigger, and I went to a yoga class, and they were feeling my abdomen, and they were like, it was definitely, I had some distension there, and it was hard. They're like, your organs should be soft, they should be. And so I started doing a lot of like intestinal breathing exercises, really which milks the organs and releases a lot of toxins. And then I did a lot of, like I said, I lowered my calories, my protein intake a lot, and as all this started working together, little by little, everything just remodeled itself.
So you were bringing up such a good point about the waves. In longevity studies, they call this the growth longevity trade-off. There, you see, you need mTOR. If you don't have mTOR, if you don't have IGF-1, for example, your brain you'll not have neurogenesis. Your brain will degrade. You'll have a feeble brain in old age.
Yeah, I agree.
And your cardiovascular system will actually end up worse if your IGF-1 levels are low for too long.
Right.
But if they're always high, you'll get cancer.
Right.
So it's because you're growing too fast and your body has DNA damage.
Yeah.
So it's all about promoting the autophagy, like you said, and then also having waves of growth and then restriction and waves of growth and restriction. And about Lenny, I feel like one of the things that's, and I know you know about this, you talked about this before, is that the growth hormone, it lowers the subcutaneous fat. And we have 2 layers of subcutaneous fat. Not many people talk about that. The lower layer, sometimes, at least in Caucasians, sometimes people live in colder climates, sometimes has brown adipose tissue. Now, in some people, this brown adipose tissue can take 20% of your metabolic function during the day. So it helps you not be insulin resistant. The growth hormone removes subcutaneous fat, and there appears to be, I found 2 studies that show that it may not remove fat from the liver. So as the fat is removing subcutaneously, it may get stuck in the liver. And I want to confirm this before I say it for sure. Everyone can quote me on it, but that seems realistic, right?
Because
we see particularly a protrusion in the first 2 rows, the first row of abs. That's where it really, you notice people with not a gut filled with food, but rather.
But then again, growth hormone also causes insulin resistance. So maybe you're getting that fat accumulation in the liver because of the insulin resistance. That's what I always found. Theory.
Of course, the insulin resistance is the main factor. It's immediately, growth hormone in one day immediately causes insulin resistance the same day.
I see the fasting blood sugars. These guys, they're terrible.
They wake up with 200.
Yeah.
Have you seen those? I've seen
there's
those.
only but I'm seeing guys that are in the 120s. That's not good because it's a long-term accumulation thing. So, and you have to address that.
Lenny's at 200.
Is he
Yeah,
really?
220.
How many
It's
IUs of growth are they taking now? I mean, everything's
3-4 IUs, not even like crazy, not even crazy. Now maybe to have a 200, you need to take a high amount. But I'm seeing guys that are just on like respectable amounts, and they're becoming insulin resistant because of that. So
too much carbs too.
What cures that though? Even guys that are on ketogenic diets, I'm seeing high fasting blood sugars, but taking a long-acting insulin, like an Lantus insulin, seems to be solving those problems, which is interesting, which kind of leads me to believe maybe the people are getting, not responding to their own insulin.
Right, but they respond better to synthetic.
Or the other theory is that by taking an exogenous insulin, you're preserving the pancreatic function, and so there's more insulin to bring down
you're alleviating
spikes.
stress on the pancreas.
Right. In other words, if you have a long-term basal insulin always working, when you need that surge of insulin, it's waiting in the beta cells
ready,
there.
yeah.
So I think that's also
So the beta cells don't get burned out.
yeah.
You know, one of the interesting things lately, guts are in the news again with Joe Rogan. Have you heard about that yet?
No. What is
So Joe Rogan, a few months ago, it's all over the YouTube and the news. Joe Rogan a few months ago did a sober October, and in the sober October they weigh themselves. I don't know why. I don't know the details, but he took his shirt off on camera. Now I live in Los Angeles, so I sometimes go to the comedy store and I see Joe Rogan perform live. And I once went with my wife, and my wife said, "But Joe Rogan is a fighter. Why does he have such a big belly?" And I didn't notice it. Then I looked. Very interesting. He had a protrusion below his chest, about 3 inches, all the way across. Looked like a fatty liver.
Is he a GH guy?
Yes, turns out he uses hormone replacement. I don't think he's admitted to using growth hormone, but he always asks his interviewees about growth hormone, so I can tell.
Yeah.
So he's been using growth hormone, I would assume, don't quote me on it, but he took his shirt off, and you can see basically what they call the bubble gut.
Yeah.
But it's mainly at the top, just a fatty liver. And he doesn't even eat carbs much.
Right.
So it's fascinating. It's everywhere, and not many people.
Yeah.
And you were, I guess, one of the first people to cure it as well, and to learn how to solve it.
I can vacuum my stomach. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's when I was in high school, I wanted to be a long distance runner, but I never had a long distance runner's body. You know that body, that Ethiopian like skinny leg. They don't touch each other when they walk. You know, just like almost emaciated look at upper body with lean, but not. I didn't have that look because I put muscle on, not I'm like a mesomorph, mesoectomorph. So I had to like starve myself to get down to create that look. And I did. I created a look that I looked like those guys. Genetically, I wasn't those guys, but I looked like those guys, which obviously helped me run better because I was leaner and lighter, right, on my feet. Then when I switched to bodybuilding and I wanted to be a bodybuilder, I wanted to look like, Arnold, so I had to recreate that, and then I built 5 years, 100 pounds of muscle, and then I looked like that. So that's empowering when you can do that. Yeah. I knew that if I can create those two extremes, you can create any look you want, if you find out the right scientific formula to do it, and then tenaciously stick to that formula with no misses. In other words, that means, I couldn't do it this weekend because I had to go. No, I don't miss meals. I don't miss how I structure my eating. I allow myself to have a cheat meal once a week. Yeah, sure. But by and far, 90%, 95% of the way I'm doing is on this mental plan that I have. I don't have to write it down in a journal or anything like that. I know what the plan is. I know what supplements I have to take. I know how I have to train and how I have to eat. And the only thing I'm not getting enough of that I would like to would be sleep, and that's just because I have kids. But I don't even think when you're not training as hard, you don't even need as much sleep.
I agree.
Do you notice that?
Yeah,
since you stop bodybuilding, you can get away with 4 hours of sleep.
4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah, and you'll be
Do you
good.
have an Apple Watch? Do you use one to measure your heart rate?
No, my wife has that Fitbit.
The
she
Fitbit
loves
is
that.
slightly less accurate, I think, than the Apple
you
Watch.
think so? Yeah.
If you check on your Apple Watch when you have 4 hours of sleep or something like that, it's less obvious when you're not working out, just like you said.
Yeah.
But you'll notice your heart rate will be slightly higher in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you measure your heart rate across the week, and then you notice one night I slept 4 hours,
Right.
it could be 5 to 10 beats per minute higher if you measure it at the same time. So it has, and it affects insulin sensitivity as well.
Plus, I'm taking.
But you have a family. It's sacrifice.
I'm ingesting caffeine now, which I never did for the last 15 years.
You started again caffeine?
I microdosed.
I thought that was a decaf.
Gotta stay awake.
That you had earlier.
No, what I'll do is I'll put like about a quarter of a regular cup of coffee and then the rest decaf. But I'll sip an energy drink during. I can't stay awake. I mean, I literally can fall. I'm like Lenny. I can fall asleep anywhere, but it's not because I don't sleep well at night. Because if I sleep, I'm out. Like I don't snore, nothing. But I just don't have enough time to sleep. So it is what it is. I find that if you microdose the caffeine, you don't get the heart effects. You get a little central nervous system stimulation because my receptors are sensitive to it. But I find that I don't get the negative cardiovascular effects. I don't get the high blood pressure from it. If I drank a whole energy drink, in one shot, I would be wired out of my mind, and I'd probably my heart beating out of my chest.
Do you take a beta blocker?
No, I don't take a beta blocker.
Is there a reason you don't want to take it?
I don't think I need it. Even though I have everything in it, which the doctors would love me to take it. I just don't.
Yeah, they would have asked you.
They originally put me on a beta blocker, and I was trying to get my wife pregnant at the time, and I felt it was counterproductive.
Really?
Because you can have retrograde ejaculation on a beta blocker. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, so
that's very useful information.
Yeah, it's not good if you're trying to have a kid or anything.
Well, thank
like
you
that.
very much.
Oh, okay. It's good to know.
Dave is a wealth of knowledge.
I actually felt good on the beta blocker. I actually it made me feel calm, almost,
Calm.
which was weird. It was a weird, like, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to take a beta blocker. It takes the. I felt like it's cool as could be, and I know a lot of like musicians use beta blockers because it keeps them from getting too over, reactive.
And speakers and stuff,
Yeah,
public
yeah,
speakers.
yeah.
And snipers.
And snipers,
Oh,
yeah,
they
to
do
steady
use
the
them?
hand.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So anyway, so we could talk about this stuff forever, but interesting stuff. The website, Guru Ameen Alai.
GuruAmeenAlai.com, and if people are interested in ibogaine, theredpillreset.com.
Now you've been saving a lot of people from disastrous addictions. I know that a lot of people have contacted me and told me that they worked with you, or they asked me, "Hey, should I work with Ameen?" I said, "How bad is your addiction?" It's destroying my life. I said, there's your answer right there.
And don't hesitate, people. Give me
and you know
contact
what, and I'm
me.
going to tell you, you don't have to promote yourself, but it doesn't matter what you charge, because I'm sure you charge a lot because you spend 24 hours with these people. I said, can you put a price on your health? Can you put a price on what you're probably losing because of your addiction, which is all your money, all your friends and family? I said, get cured. He has a very good success rate with this. Everyone who's done it has come to me, told me that they had a very good experience with you.
Thank you.
And so, I mean, obviously you're doing a public service, and you got to get paid for that. But no one else is doing this stuff out there that I am aware of, at least. So, and like I said, if this resonates with one person, then that's great. Is there anything else you guys want to add that maybe I didn't bring up?
Well, we're just so happy to be here and see you again.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank
you
so
guys
much.
coming down, and just leave the Lamborghini truck when you guys take off. And,
We're going to go see your snakes now.
I'll take care. Yeah, we're going to go show you a little snake show. But I appreciate you guys stopping by.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's really good to
See,
see
a lot
you
of people
guys.
don't know this, but I haven't seen him in what, 20 years? Maybe?
Yeah, it's been a long
It's been
time.
a while,
Yeah,
man.
I'm trying to think the last
At
time.
least 15 years. Was it 2000 and when Abbas did the USA?
Is that the last time I saw you?
I think that was the last
in person.
time I saw you.
I feel like I see him all the time because you're always on the show.
Right.
And Skype is kind of like a very intimate type of thing.
is.
So I always feel like, well, we're in the same room. But then I remember when you said that just now, I said, it's been a long time since I
But
saw you in person.
we text and talk all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
A lot of people don't know, but Dave has been very supportive about my family situation.
Yeah,
and
it's
everything.
terrible. He's got a stepson who's terminally ill, and it's a tragedy, really. I mean, I don't even.
This is another reason why I wanted to involve someone to help me with genetics, because I want to try to help my son the best as possible.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for a lot of people when they get together now to avoid these types of things, to having children with two people that have the wrong type of genetics that could. So there's ways to find out before you have kids whether your kids are going to be affected by this.
Right.
And really, with this new technology, we got to take advantage of this stuff now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys stopping by. GuruAmeenAlai.com. If you guys want to get in touch with these guys, I'm Dave Palumbo for another edition of RxMuscle in Studio.